have you here with me once again. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, you can call me Shannon. And as you can see in the title, today we're having an interesting video, kind of an experiment. And that is, if I could only keep 10 palettes, which palettes I will keep. And to be honest, this is a video that I have tried to film so many times in the history of my channel, because every time that I try to film this video, I don't like it and I just discard it basically. But today I really want to try this again. I have made a new selection, a little bit different than the other selections that I have made before. Some of the palettes are palettes that I have always knew that if I could only keep 10 palettes, I will keep this, but the others are different. But that's not the point. You don't even have seen the other videos, so why I'm telling you this? But well, this video, I think I saw I cannot remember who I saw doing this video for the first time, but I'll look for the creator of this project and all of the other YouTubers that I have seen doing this video, and I'll leave their channels down in the description box. But I don't want to make this introduction any longer because I'm in a chatty mood. So let's start with this video. Okay, I know that one of the people that I have seen doing this video is Morgan Turner, and she was really strategic about this video. Like, not only choosing her favorite products, but really thinking, if I could only keep 10 palettes, and I want all the variety that I really use, I really need, which palettes will I choose to have a little bit of everything that I need? Like that my collection doesn't lack of anything. And that's the way I decided to go with this video. And when I started thinking strategically about this project, the first thing that I thought, it was the neutrals. I need a lot of neutrals because neutrals are the thing that I use the most lately. And weirdly, the first thing that I saw, it was cool neutrals. And for that, it was a no-brainer because I have no doubt in my mind that for a cool neutral palette, I will go with my Dots Taupe palette. The reason why I decided to go with this palette is not just because it's a beautiful palette, but because you have a lot to play around with this palette. First, you have from a really light shade to a really dark one without getting to the white or cream and the black. And also, this is a really nice cool tone palette because you have like different levels of coolness in this palette. You have something more close to a brown, for example this one over here, and you have other shades that are closer to a pink, like this one over here, and some others that are more closer to a gray. So you have a lot to play around with it, and I knew that if I needed a cool tone palette, this one will be the one. Okay, so I had my cool neutrals and now I needed my warm neutrals. And for that I was surprised because I decided to go with this palette over here. This is my Naked Honey from Urban Decay. And as I said, I was surprised because this is basically a golden palette. And there are so much more in the neutral warm world that goldens. But let's start with the fact that I really love goldens. I really enjoy using goldens, and this palette gives me a variety of them. You have some that are a little bit more like a bronze and others that are closer to a yellow golden, really bright. So you have a little bit of everything. And the other reason why I decided to go with this palette is because for a neutral palette, this is your everyday perfect palette. Perfect everyday palette, because if you want something for work, for example, that is not really dramatic, this palette is just perfect. So I needed this palette in my smaller collection. And we could be okay with those neutrals, but for me, a lover of neutrals lately, I needed a neutral palette, something that it was not too cool or not too warm, something in the middle, a neutral palette basically. And for that I decided to go with my Going Coconuts palette. This palette is just perfect for an effortless look, and for some reason this palette really inspires me in summer. Maybe it's because of the coconuts, but I feel like the color stories is just perfect. Like, this is a whole palette by itself. You could do so many things only using this palette. I feel like the selection of shimmers is so smart in this palette, because even if you only have 3, and usually I prefer like half and half, 50-50, 50 mattes, 50 shimmers, I feel like this is a really smart selection. And especially the shade Dark Cocoa, I really love. The only issue for me with this palette is that there are a couple of shades that I will prefer to change. For example, Get Cracking is not a color that I really enjoy, and I feel like Lovely Bunch over here and Cool Lava, they look really similar on the eyes. So this palette could be even better, but even that way I really enjoy it. Okay, so with that, I should be okay with my neutrals, but then I remember that are other kind of shades that are more neutral, but at the same time are more colorful. And that's something that I really enjoy, like a neutral that is not really just browns. And for that, I decided to go with my Blush Crush palette. And let's start with the fact that my favorite, or one of my favorite eyeshadows to wear, are pinks and purples. And I feel like pink is such an easy color to wear. Like, you can wear a really soft and neutral look with pinks, or something super bright and colorful and fun with pinks. And this palette, I just love it, especially in summer. Again, these colors are so effortless. My only issue with this palette is this shade over here, Pop a Bottle, I think it's called, because this is supposed to be a super chalk shadow, but since the moment that I got this palette, it was super dry, so it's super messy to apply. But if you take the time to apply it correctly, looks so beautiful in your eyes, so beautiful. And now that I have my neutrals, I start thinking about my favorite palettes that I needed in my smaller collection. And the first palette that I wanted to mention is my Jackie Aina palette. As I said, this is one of my favorite palettes in my collection, and I feel like you can use it in every kind of look that you can imagine, because it's neutral, it's colorful, it's perfect for winter, it's perfect for summer. The shimmers are stunning, but the mattes are pigmented and blendable. The only thing that I will say that I don't love about this palette is, first thing, the red. This over here, I don't really enjoy reds. But also I don't like the fact that Trust Issues and Bolas, I'm not sure how to pronounce this shade over here, in the eye looks exactly the same for me. I just find that these two shades are the same. But out of that, this palette is so amazing that I needed it in my smaller collection. And now that I was talking about my favorite palettes, I knew that I needed my original Zodiac palette. That this palette is just my favorite palette to use in winter, because it has everything. It has neutrals, it has pink, it has purples, it has basically everything that I like. And this is such a stunning palette to use in winter. The shimmers are amazing, the color story, I just love it. And especially when you think that this palette is really cheap, especially considering that you can get it for 50% off really easily, like BH has this palette in sale so often. I feel like it's so worth it, and the colors, especially the shimmers, as I said, are so pretty and foiled. I just love this palette, so I needed it. I just needed this palette in my smaller collection. So with this, we already have 6 palettes on my collection, and my favorites were covered, my neutrals were covered, and now I started to think about the colorful shades that I needed on my smaller collection. And I knew that the colorful colors that I needed were pinks and purples. And with the purples, it was really easy for me to choose, because it's my pleasure, it's my favorite purple palette ever. I know it's not a super purple palette because it has some pinks on it, but the shimmers in this palette, again, are the most beautiful purple shimmers that I have in my whole collection. And even if I'm lacking some purples in the mattes, I feel like adding the purples in the Zodiac palette and the Jackie Aina palette, I will have enough to play around. And then I started to think about pinks. And that was a surprise for me, because I thought I was going to go with another palette, but no. This is what I choose. I chose my Norvina Volume 4 palette, and I wasn't expecting that. I don't know why. This is not the palette I thought I was going to choose, but when I thought about a pink palette, this palette came to mind, and even if I tried to fight it and choose another one, nope. My mind was set. I needed this palette for a pink look. This is the Norvina Volume 4 palette, and this palette, even if it's my pink palette in this smaller collection, is not as pink as the It's My Pleasure It's Purple. But even knowing that, I just needed this palette in my smaller collection. I was really surprised about it because this is not one of my favorite palettes in my collection. It's one of the most expensive, but not my favorite, not even close. But I feel like it has some really fun pinks. And I already have like the pink neutrals in my Blush Crush palette. And here I have like the fun stuff. But I'm still surprised that I chose this palette. It's not easy to use, has glitter, so my new collection is not glitter free anymore. But I just can't take this palette out of my mind, so I just go with it. I decide not to fight it, and I just go with it. So we only need 2 more palettes, and in this point it was really hard because I felt like with only those 8 palettes I will be completely okay, but I really wanted to choose 2 more palettes if I could only keep 10. Like 8 palettes doesn't sound like enough for me. And I think and think and think, what else do I want? And then I realized that the only thing that I was missing was some fun shimmers to play around with. And for that I decided to go first. Where is that palette? I'm missing a palette? I'm missing a palette. And for the fun shimmers, I decided to go first with my Magic Mini palette, because with this palette I can play around with warm colors but also with cool tone products. But to be 100% honest with you, the shades that make me choose this product was Suba, Faso, and Yera. Those colors I'm in love with. I just really love those colors, are so stunning. But also I decided to go with this palette because I can play around with some colors that so far I don't have on my collection, in my small collection. For example, some greens, some blues, some silvers, some reds. I feel like those colors I don't have yet on my collection, so this one will help for that. So yeah, I decided to go with this one first, and then it was the hardest one because I didn't expect to choose this palette either. But when I started thinking about having fun with shimmers, I remember this palette and I just chose it. Why, you might ask? A lot of people love this palette. I'm just starting to play around with it, and to be honest, I like it, but I'm not loving it. And I think the reason why I decided to go with this palette is because the other day I was playing with these 2 colors over here, Golden Glitch and Frazzled. Are neutrals but are so dimensional that I was crazy about them. They are so pretty that for me it's worth it to give this palette for those 2 shades. It's not like I don't like the other shades in this palette, but I feel like this palette is not a complete palette for me. For example, I feel like I'm missing some mattes in this palette. I feel like this shade that looks really brown taupe, that looks like a brown taupe, when you apply it on your eyes, it's just a purple, and it's weird. But yeah, I like this palette, I like the shimmer, so I decided to go with it. But yeah, that's everything for today. I tried to make this video short, but I don't think I achieved that. But thank you so much for joining me in this process. If you like it, please consider subscribing. Remember that we're doing the VLOGMAS. That means that we're going to have a video every single day since the 1st of December up to the 25th of December for Christmas. So yeah, if you would like to see more of my videos, please consider subscribing. I will love that, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye!